So the question I had asked on that one, right when we introduced you at the front, because you were sitting in here, was what the fuck makes you want to get eaten by an anaconda? I really need this cleared up, and everyone else does too.
It's so crazy that I got, and that's a perfect lead in, because it's so crazy that has become such a huge thing, because I have spent the last 17 years, my entire adult life, doing one thing, trying to protect the tributary of the Amazon rainforest. That's it. And so when Discovery Channel came in, I think I was early 20s, maybe 22, 24 years old, and they said, look, we want to do a documentary about anacondas. And I said, cool, we'll show you all the science. We'll show you how ecologically relevant they are. We'll do everything. And they said, that's awesome. They said, but it's not enough. They were like, we want more. And I was like, what do you want? Like anacondas with tits on them? Like, how do you want to take this? And they were like, they were flying me to LA. They were talking about it a lot. And then finally one guy goes, how many people have been eaten by an anaconda? And I said, I mean, the only person I personally know that got eaten by an anaconda was my friend's father-in-law.
Is he alive?
No, he got eaten by an anaconda.
I was going to say, I didn't know if he did it like you did.
No. Only one person did what I did. No, he got legitimately real world nature eaten. He went down to the river. He was drunk at night and he tried to get a drink. Oh. Never came back. They looked for him. Everybody was partying. In the morning, they went looking for him, and there was an anaconda, and they can't dive when they've just eaten. So there's this huge anaconda with a human-shaped lump in its body. Oh. So he actually got eaten by a snake.
What an awful way to go.
That's a terrible way to go. I've come extremely close to that. Once I got wrapped, we were trying to study the snake. We were trying to measure it. I got wrapped, and the thing is, you grab it by the head. You got to control the head. And then it wrapped my arms, and now my forearms are pinned together. And then it wraps my shoulders, and now my collarbone, my shoulders are coming closer together as this snake's coils are coming in. This is like a 300-pound snake. And
how long?
This is about a 17-foot snake.
Jesus
Huge snake. We're talking like thicker than a basketball, like dinner plate sized all the way down. This thing's wrapped me. I'm losing oxygen. I'm trying to scream for my friends. And, nothing's coming out. And so these guys are running in just as my collarbones are about to crack. They grab the tail, and the only way to unwrap it is to grab the tail. I still had the head, but I was completely out of control. If they didn't show up, that snake would have crushed every bone in my body and then gone back in the water. He wasn't trying to kill me, but he was going to remove the threat. I mean, as the researcher, I had to control the snake, and so he was viewing that as that I was attacking him. She was viewing it, actually. It was a female anaconda. The females, they have sexual dimorphism, so the females are significantly larger than the males with anacondas.
Really? I didn't know anything about that. But this wasn't your idea. I didn't know that. This was their idea.
Well, I was telling them all this shit, and then they came in and they went, well, what if you prove to everybody that it can be done? And I was like, why do we need to prove that it can be done? And they were like, how great would that be? And so then they started this conversation where they were like, look, if you get eaten by an anaconda, we'll give you a 2-hour special, multi-million-dollar budget. You could talk about all the nature tree hugger shit you want to talk about, but at the end, you got to do this stunt. And they go, it's just hiding the vegetables. He goes, you bring people in for the meat and the cheese. He goes, but just hide the research. He goes, we'll give it to them. And I said, okay. I said, fuck it, I'll do it.
Now, you went in there, though. This is the crazy part about the strength of the anaconda.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not like, for people listening who haven't seen this, maybe we'll see if I can put it in the corner of the screen if they're not going to demonetize it. But, like, you're not going in there just like, hey, I'm here, eat me. You're going in there with, like, a full suit and everything.
Yeah,
like, what did they put you in?
They put me in this crazy-ass, like, Kevlar suit with a, breathing apparatus and communication device. And so I had oxygen involved in case the snake actually ate me. The stupidity of this stunt cannot be overstated. This is a moronic idea that we knew there was a 1 in a million chance it was going to work, and it was mostly to bring in the viewers to teach them about the ecology of the Amazon. Because how do you make protecting trees sexy? How do you get the public to pay attention to the fact that we're destroying the natural world? So this was done out of pure frustration and insanity. I said, if this is what it takes to get those ratings, to get all those people to look, then I'll do it.
Did you talk with, or did they have you talk with, like, experts who said, here's the percentage chance that even with our team all there to come in, here's the chance you don't make it out alive? Like, was there anything like that?
Oh, my God, yeah. They went through all of this stuff, and the thing is, with a snake, no snake wants to harm you. If you're dealing with if there was a king cobra in the room right now,
really,
we would be in no danger.
Really?
Absolutely not. Rattlesnakes have a rattle, so they can rattle and say, don't step on me. Cobra has a hood, so it can hood up and say, back off. Don't make me do this. And that's what they're saying. That's why they have those warning systems. And so an anaconda, if it's in the room, it's going to find the darkest spot, it's going to look for water, and it's going to go there. They're not aggressive animals. They don't usually view humans as prey. It has to be the right situation. It's like when people get attacked by coyotes. It's like, well, it has to be starving coyotes in a situation where they're, they don't have any other food option. And so,
a question though, why wouldn't they view humans as prey? Because I know less about what an anaconda likes, but I do know the whole concept of they try to eat something big, they stick it in their stomach, and then it can last them for months. So what's not to love about a human?
I mean, look, an anaconda is a very simple animal. It's going to sit in a swamp and wait for predators. And actually, we've been doing research in the Amazon that has shown us that they're not just ambush predators. They actually are going after prey. They're going along stream systems into the forest looking for prey. But an anaconda has grown up eating what? It's eating fish. It's eating crocodiles, caiman. It's eating birds. It's eating small mammals. And the thing with anacondas is they start at a very small length. You're talking about like 16 inches. You're talking about a little snake that a heron could eat. And baby caiman are eating the anacondas. And so they're actually feeding the ecosystem as well as being predators in the ecosystem. And so most animals have a certain niche where they exist. So like a jaguar is going to eat jaguar food. A bird is going to eat, fish, insects, whatever. An anaconda is starting small, and then they're turning into this apex predator. So they have this disproportionately massive effect on the entire food chain of the Amazon.
How long does it take them to go from baby anaconda to say like 15 feet or something?
Depends how much food they have. If you feed a baby anaconda regularly every week, that anaconda is starting on frogs and then going up to rabbits and then going up to capybara and then pulling down a tapir once in a while. I mean, that anaconda is going to grow into a dragon.
Wow.
Very quick, especially if it's a female. The males, you get like 11 feet. Females, you're talking about 23, 26 feet, like huge snakes. Heaviest
yours
snake
was still
in the world.
17, right?
Ours was we caught an 18 foot 6 inch snake. That's a 6 meter snake, 220 pounds, and she was on an empty stomach.
Okay, so you guys went and caught it
in the Amazon, yeah.
And then you put it, like, walk me through what they did.
So
you put it in a space, and then you just walked in with pig's blood all over the suit or something?
No, we went down to the Amazon. We did our research. We caught this huge snake, and then it became clear to us that we're not going to put a wild animal through this thing. So we wanted to work in a controlled environment. So the end of that show, and this is where the controversy all came up, was that the end of that show was filmed in the U.S. They had tight shots. It's total bullshit. I mean, Discovery Channel, they've had documentaries trying to convince people that mermaids are real. And so at the end of this...
It's the most Hollywood thing ever.
It was absolutely awful.
Where in the U.S.? L.A.?
I forget what state we were in. I want to say like Tennessee or something.
So they just brought in anaconda?
They just brought in this huge anaconda that some guy named Larry had in his basement. I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. I wish I was. And then they're like, dude, get suited up. It takes like an hour to get suited up. And then this poor snake's laying in the mud, and it's like, I want to go like relax. A snake wants to go be hidden, be safe. And, I walk up to it, and the snake's just like, I have no interest in this. And like, I picked up the snake, and she's flicking her tongue. She's like, what's going on? And I was like, hey, nothing. And I was like, do you want to eat me? Like, it was just the stupidest thing in the world. So what I was planning was that...
You're wearing a full suit, though.
You're wearing a full suit. You're wearing this
you
crazy
can't see your face.
suit. No, and also they wanted to have like a link between the head and the shoulders so that the snake could slip over my body. Again, what are the odds of this happening? And so what it really speaks to how broken the wildlife entertainment industry is, that like we can't get ratings for a legitimate wildlife film, but they'll put all of their resources into something where some guy gets eaten by a snake and then pull all of the ecological information out of that film.
Now, you were talking, as you said, you were mic'd up during this whole thing, though.
Yep.
So when you watch the scene, and of course they like dramatize all the angles and everything, but it actually is like, I mean, you're getting fucking squeezed by an anaconda.
I don't know, man. I was in like a bulletproof suit. I mean, you could hit me with a 2x4 and I would have been fine. So like dealing with a snake, and I mean, I deal with snakes every day with no shirt on. Dealing with this with a Kevlar suit and a visor and all this stuff, I mean, what's going to happen?
But it was crushing because it's so strong.
At one point, it was wrapped around me, but again, this is a heavy amount of movie magic. I mean, there was not a lot of authenticity to this, and that's why when this film, and I'm calling it a film, not a documentary, when this shit came out, I was supposed to do, I think, Good Morning America the next day, and I watched this in my hotel room, and I went, I am not promoting this. And they had one of the Discovery Channel handlers call me, and they were like, look, if you're about to go on national TV and not be part of the narrative, then we're going to have some legal conversations. And I was like, but we had a bit of a thing. So now I split with Discovery Channel after that because it was absolute bullshit.
Because you were in there and you sit like on the scene or in the scene, you're like, oh shit, it has my arm pin. I got to get out. Was that all like...
I mean, it was at the point where I'd been in the suit for hours, and they're like,
that was hours in.
It was hours in, because they're like, the snake doesn't care. And then they're like, have somebody put the snake on him. They're like, lay in the mud, let's put the snake. I mean, it was pathetic. It was absolutely crazy. And so a few things happened. The mainstream media was pissed that they called it eaten alive, and I didn't get eaten alive, because the average person wanted to see a dude get eaten by an anaconda. You
were in its mouth, though, right?
I wasn't. It never even bit.
It was just
she never even actually bit me intentionally.
Okay.
PETA was up in arms because it was animal abuse. Apparently, rolling on the mud with an anaconda is harming it somehow. Okay. Still not sure about that one. And then the scientific community and the conservation world was like, this kid's clearly a moron. And I lost a ton of job opportunities and like sort of professional contacts because people were like, you have no respect for animals. And so all of the research that we were doing, all the conservation work, all of the relating anacondas as an apex predator to mercury contamination in the Amazon, all that stuff got thrown out.
That sucks.
Yeah, they changed our voices to say different things on the film. I mean, yeah, it was there. We got hoodwinked hard. And then I ended up taking the shit for it, being on Jimmy Kimmel, and he was like, maybe for your next stunt, you could have sex with a hippo. And I had this zinger about like, yeah, it was better than your wife. And I was like, let me just not say that. Yeah.
That would have been cut from the edit, for sure.
But no, it really, so I had to go out and smile for the cameras while we were just getting stripped of all the good science that we'd done. And so, yeah, that one didn't end well. But I tried. And that...
You tried, yeah.
Yeah, you tried. And you hear these people, you hear like these, you hear like Goggins or something talk about like, you just got to accept failure. Or any CEO, they'll be like, just accept failure. I mean, Churchill said, what's the definition? You got to go from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And it's like, dude, I took a big swing.
This was a while ago now, too.
This was a while ago. It was 2014, but people still bring it up. I just got denied for an environmental like conservation award because I was in the final running. I was in the top 3 people for a major award. And they went, are you the guy that got eaten by an anaconda? And I went, well, yeah, but... And they were like, no, disqualified. Disqualified for a TV show.
This is why it's important you do shit like this.
Yeah.
And when people are also way bigger than me, because you have to have the narrative out there that also happens to be the truth.
I mean, yeah, that and the fact that people are tuning in to watch Discovery Channel, where they're telling people that mermaids are real. They're promising that a snake is going to eat someone.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. When we were kids, Discovery Channel used to be something you could watch and learn from. And I feel like that's been... When I was a kid, they had good stuff on. Come on.
Maybe.
Discovery Channel and Animal Planet. We used to watch Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin.
That's true.
Those guys were great. They used to have actual documentaries. I remember they had a thing, I think it was Discovery Channel. They had like Mission to Borneo. They had like... They'd go with actual scientists. And then, Shark Week, they'd play stuff up. But it's like the actual ridiculous, like just ratings hunt.
Yes.
Just whoring themselves out for ratings. Like, I am now the poster child for that. I went to Hollywood and learned hard what happens when you go along with a major studio like that.
Yeah, it's kind of it's one of the downsides of I guess capitalism in this way, because you're always even if capitalism is a better system than the alternatives, which I would absolutely agree, there's always going to be some loose end that can't be tied. And when you have public or even private corporations that need to be able to get a bottom line in order for everyone to subsist, they're going to find a way to make everything juicy. And it's like, look, if you can make something juicy, honestly, fucking do it, man.
Do it.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But like when you're telling me now, I had no idea that was like going on for a few hours while you were filming that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And like the way they made it look.
Oh, yeah.
It's like something about that's so wrong, because you are, especially like looking at your own life arc, you're somebody who is like legitimately the dude, the Tarzan down in the Amazon.
Well, I tarred and feathered myself on this one, man. I'll give you another example, though, of what we were dealing with. So we were in the Amazon, and we got all of our local indigenous guys there. We have scientists from around the world. I compiled all the A team of all the best people I had. And we're like on week 3 or 4 of filming, and we get this call on a sat phone in the middle of the jungle from this like producer sitting in an air-conditioned room in LA.
When is this?
This is as we're filming, so earlier in 2014, summer of 2014. And he goes, look, man, we don't have a danger beat. He was like, we need a danger beat. I was like, what do you want us to do? I was like, we're literally like up to our necks in the swamps, in the Amazon, hunting for anacondas. We've caught anacondas. It's been exciting. And the guy was like, no, we need like a lead out to a commercial. So we need you guys to look shocked. And I was like, yeah, but these are professionals. Like, we're not actually shocked and scared. We're in control. I mean, that's like asking a bunch of firemen to just freak out and run out of the building. It's like, we're not going to do that. That's not how we roll. It's not how we present ourselves. And they were like, basically, they hung up. We got the call back, and they were like, look, we figured out a way for you guys to look shocked, and this will be a great commercial lead out. You're traveling down the river, and Paul, you discover that there are black piranha up ahead. And so you tell everyone to pull over in the boat, and you pour a bucket of blood into the river, and then you safely go around the piranha. And I was like, bro.
You pour a bucket of blood into the river. A bucket
of blood. I'm like, where am I supposed to get a bucket of blood in the jungle?
We got that.
how would anacondas, so how would piranhas hurt us if we're in a boat? And I was like, this is fucking stupid. I was like, I'm not doing it. And they went, well, we'll shut down production.
Oh my
so in
God.
the end, they made us act out this ridiculous scene where we had to pretend that we were being shocked by an electric eel. This is the stuff that they're feeding people.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is, I'm sitting here, and as you're telling me it, like some of it just sounds more shocking than the last thing. But when you sit back, like everyone listening right now, this is the reality TV age. Like none of this should surprise us.
Nope.
It's just something about the fact that it's like raw documentary, supposed to be content like in nature with like animals and shit. You don't think like, oh, the Kardashians, but that's literally what
it's literally the same thing.
Same
it's the
shit.
Kardashians in the jungle. They literally at one point they were like, hey, could you guys have a little? Could you turn that argument up a little bit? We're having like an argument about like whether to use like a piece of gear. And they're like, would you guys ever like really argue about that? And we were like, theoretically, I don't know. And the guy was like, just do a little more. Get pissed and storm off. And we were like, no, just no.
You got the dude with like the fake British accent from America with like the thing tied around his neck. Like, I need some more drama.
It was Tropic Thunder. This motherfucker's dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's great to start with that because I think that encaptures the fact that the battles go far beyond just the awareness, because you never know. Like when you're passionate about something like you are, you're going to look for every possible angle you can get. And that's all you were doing here. And so, let's dispel some of that shit. Now, I think that's a great clip right there to go through that for people to see like, oh, this is what Paul Rosolie's about, you know?
Yeah, because it's still, that definitely, the stigma of that still follows me around. But yes, when you go into it, it's how much burning forest do I have to see? How many dead animals smoking on the ground that used to be the Amazon rainforest do I have to see before I come just screaming? What do you do when you're at the top of your lungs and no one's listening? We've been screaming for decades about this. I went to the Bronx Zoo. The thing that propelled me into what I do today is that I saw those pictures in the Bronx Zoo, and they said when there's a road, it kills a rainforest. And they showed all the pictures of the timber coming down, and they said these environments might not be there by the time you're grown up. And that's what sent me. I dropped out of high school. I got my GED. I went to college, and I started going to the Amazon rainforest at 18 years old.
I was going to say, like, how does a Sicilian from Brooklyn end up down in the Amazon? And I guess that's a simple enough
One day I was eating a mozzarella on 13th Avenue.
But you were just passionate about it. You wanted to learn more, it sounds like.
In the nature versus nurture, it's hard to say, because when I was a kid, I was that kid that, like, my parents would be like, what do you want to do this weekend? And I'm talking like 3 years old. And I'd be like, I want to go to the stream. Like, I want to go catch frogs. I want to see snakes. I want to go. So they would take me to do all that stuff. So they nurtured my nature. And
That's
then,
cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
From New York City. I mean, it's like, you know.
Yeah. And so then we lived in Jersey for a while growing up. And so I was in like upstate New York. And in I like to go to the forest on like summer thunderstorm days because it looked dark, like jungly.
Hey guys, I got 4 quick things to ask you this week to help me grow the show. Number 1, as always, if you haven't already, please be sure to share this episode around with your friends and on social media. Word of mouth is the best thing we can do. Let's keep that rolling. Number 2, the regular YouTube list. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. If you haven't already hit the like button on this video, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't already hit the bell button for notifications on the channel, please be sure to do that too so that you know when we drop a new episode every single week. And finally, would love to hear from you guys down in the comments section as always. If you are on Apple or Spotify right now, please be sure to leave a 5-star review on either one of those platforms. That is a huge, huge help. Thank you to everyone who's been doing that, and thank you to all of you who are going to do it now. Finally, please check out our sponsor, 8 Sleep, down in the link in my description below. You can get the 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover for $150 off using code TRENDIFIER at checkout. That's TRENDIFIER. As I say, you'll sleep 6 hours and feel like you slept 8. So check it out. It's going to change your life, and you're going to love it.
And then as a teenager, I was going out into the forest, and I would bring a steak. Like I'd save up. I'd get like a ribeye, and I'd bring my hunting knife and my golden retriever. No shelter, one match, and that's the whole weekend. And you got to just build shelter, find your way, survive in the forest, and you have your dog. And so it's fun.
You were clearly like
So I was
enthused by that.
So I was in survival situations. I was tracking animals from an extremely young age. I'd say from like 11 years old, I was out on my own.
So once again, though, when you were 18, was it you got into a program, or you just waited to go to college and went down there first, or what was the?
No, when you're that age, especially it's amazing how different it is now, 17 years later. But at that age, I was trying to look for the most official way of going down. I didn't want to go down to like Costa Rica as a tourist. I wanted to go to the Amazon rainforest and be a part of either research or some other project that was actually important. And so I asked everybody, and everybody said, no, you got to be like a grad student to do this. And you're 17 years old. They're like, go finish high school. And I'm like, I'm never going back. You can't make me.
How much did you know like about the Amazon before you went?
The stuff I'd seen on documentaries. I mean, the stuff that, David Attenborough and Steve Irwin and, it's you know, they have those rainforest books in the library, like those big, you have like Franz Lanting and all these photographers that would put out, the rainforest books, and we just look at them like, oh my God, look at the mist coming off the jungle, and look at these species and the arrow frogs and anacondas, jaguars. And there's always that thing looming over your head when you love rainforests, is like, is it even going to be there by the time I get to see it? And so for me, I was a kid that I hated school, wasn't good in school, was constantly getting in trouble. And so my parents were so supportive. They said, look, you can leave after your sophomore year, get your GED, which for all the other kids that don't like school, want to get out in the world, you don't have to do it.
Oh, you left high school after sophomore year?
I left high school. I never went back. Never told them. They were calling us for junior year. They were like, yo, you're not showing up. It was like, we never even said anything.
My apologies if you said that. I was just making sure I had your video, because I realized it was on the other file, so I was a little out there for a second.
No.
So wow, that I didn't realize you went like, that was even...
No, I just left.
Shit.
I was just like, I felt like from middle school to high school, I was like, I am so bored from sitting at a desk, and I'd been in trouble so many times, and I was reading all these books of people like Jane Goodall and all these incredible people, that Teddy Roosevelt, that like go out there and do stuff. And I was like, at what point does that start for me? Like on the weekends, I can go camping in Harriman State Park up by myself. But if I walk for 3 more hours, I come out the other side, and I'm still in suburbia. And I'm like, at what point can I go to a place in nature where you can drink the water? Where is it like still pristine? Like to me, it was like we've if you look at the East Coast of the U.S., it's all humans,
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go to a place that was like truly wild. And when you look at everywhere, the Amazon rainforest is the biggest contiguous rainforest on Earth. The Western Amazon has more biodiversity than anywhere else on Earth. And so,
and what for people out there, when you say biodiversity, are you referring to pretty much everything as far as like plants and species?
Yep. The whole ecosystem. So you have the tropical Andes, which is like the cloud forests at the edge of the Andes Mountains. And then you have the lowland tropical Amazon rainforest. And when those two mega biodiverse biomes meet, you have more plants and animals than has ever existed, not just on Earth, but in the entire fossil record. So we're alive at the most species-rich moment in terrestrial biology. It's mind-blowing. I always tell people, like, you look at, like, you watch the movie Avatar, and it's like that.
Yeah.
Literally, there are giant trees. They are connected by mycelium networks, and there's animals pollinating all this stuff. It is the most complex ecosystem you can imagine. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
And it's a place so few people go. It's like kind of like that. It's not forgotten, because people do know the word rainforest and they say it and don't really think about it here, but it's not like there's not as much of an emphasis on like crazy tourism, at least like from the US, to go down there. It would be really cool if people had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we do that. That's how I started. I went down and met the local guys, and then we started bringing tourism, because at the time they were like, this is how we can work not as loggers.
Right.
You're born down there, you only do a few things. You're either a gold miner, you're a logger, or you work in ecotourism. And so, I mean, you have to pretty much, the jungle is the resource, and you have to find a way to make a living off the jungle. And so they were like, look, we're trying to protect this little piece of forest. And they're like, but we don't have access to gringos. We're always out in the jungle. And so I was like, you want gringos? I was like, New York City got some gringos. I was like, I can bring you people. And so I started going back and telling my friends stories about, I'm in the jungle and this jaguar was smelling my head while I was asleep at night. And an anaconda, and we caught a caiman. And people were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, come with me.
Yeah.
I was like, I will show you.
Yeah.
I was like, this place will change your life.
What I really want to do today is not just educate on the actual rainforest and what it's comprised of and stuff like that. And I'll be putting maps in the corner. I'll point out, like, when you're talking sometimes when I'm putting one in the corner for people to see on the screen. But, like, you know, the whole thing is, it's almost like, I love how you use the avatar example, because it almost has like a breathing life of its own as a whole. Like, that's how I visualize it in my head. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that there's like 3,000 or 4,000 indigenous communities down there that live on their own, away from the various nations they're in. A lot of people don't, and again, I'll start with the first map right now. A lot of people don't even know like where the rainforest is fully comprised, like which countries it's in. It's in
everybody thinks it's just in Brazil.
9 or 10 countries or something.
There's about 9 countries in the Amazon basin.
So what's crazy is that the rhetoric that we are used to hearing from growing up, that perhaps clearly we don't put enough emphasis on, is that, oh my God, it's going to be gone, or like it's burning, or they're cutting down trees and we're going to lose this ecosystem. What people don't really get, and I'm also speaking for myself here, is exactly like to what effect it is now gone, because we're like, well, it's still there. They were telling us it wasn't there 10 years ago, but it's burning fast. And also why that's so important. Like, you blew my mind when we were out to dinner the first time you were here with Ryan, talking about the use of trees, like in architecture and stuff, and how it's not just as simple as, just plant a new tree at all.
I mean, there's so much to unpack in the questions you just asked, but it's right now the Amazon rainforest. I mean, it's one of the largest physical features on our planet. Let's start there. You look at planet Earth. It's something you can see from space. It's huge. It dominates the top of South America. And you have more plants and animals there than anywhere else. So you have medicines coming out of there. You have endangered species. You have all this hardwood. You have a river system that holds 1/5 of our planet's fresh water. So that's producing all of this moisture that's in the clouds, that's stabilizing our global climate. So in terms of because the Amazon is keeping carbon in the ground, the Amazon rainforest is breathing in all that. And so you have this major climate regulation system that comes standard with life on Earth. And we're like, let's just destroy it. And they're doing the same thing in Indonesia. They're doing the same thing in the Congo. It's so tempting to cut down these trees and use them for hardwood floors, for whatever. And it's like these get exported to China, to America, to Europe. We're losing one of the most important things we have. And like literally the cure from malaria came out of the Amazon rainforest. We have so many medicines flowing through these trees. I mean, I've been with the late local guys for 17 years. They don't go to the pharmacy. They go to the trees. There used to be an Apple campaign. They used to say, we have an app for that. Whatever you need, we got an app for that. And it's like, my guy down there, JJ, anything that happens, you're like, oh, I got an eye infection. He's like, I have a sap for that. Right. And he'll take you into the forest and cut a tree. And whether he has to boil it or mix it with something else, but like they have compounds. And this is not like you got to believe in it for it to work. These are chemical compounds flowing through the trees. There's one tree in the Amazon its sap is so rich in hydrocarbons that you could cut this tree, collect the sap, pour it into a diesel motor, and the engine will run.
Holy shit.
Like, there's some wild shit down there. We found saps that murder infections. Like, you cannot have an infection. You cannot have that bacteria in a petri dish. It will destroy it. And it's like, infections are a major problem in the health industry. Like, across America, I think I heard something like, I don't want to get it wrong, but it's like I heard something that next to car accidents, infections kill more Americans every year. Like, it's a major thing.
Even now.
Like, and especially that we're getting antibiotic resistant infections like MRSA. People are like, we're constantly at a battle where our antibiotics have to combat the ability of bacteria to adapt. And so it's like, when you have compounds like this that murder this stuff, it's like, that's a major thing. These are medical breakthroughs hidden in the Amazon waiting to be uncovered as we're burning it down.
And why are people, obviously there's trees being cut down everywhere. I'm not naive, but why is it so heavy in the Amazon, or like where another rainforest is in like the Congo and stuff like that? Like, why of all the places where loggers have to like say, all right, we're going to cut down a fuck ton, why are they going to these places?
I think the reason, I mean, look, we've lost 95% of the original tree cover that was in North America before Europeans reached the continent. 95%. Like, good luck finding old growth
North America.
In North America.
I believe that.
I mean, they pretty much just came to the continent and shaped it. You know, and you have like a few patches that were protected by people that could see this happening, like the sequoia trees and the redwoods. But in rainforests, what happens is you have these vast areas that are completely impenetrable. And so a lot of times, like, you're past law enforcement, it's so remote and it becomes this wilderness area. And so when you get a road going through there, people see it as just a free-for-all. Whether or not somebody owns that land, it's so vast that like when we're down there in the Amazon, like someone will cut a road. Like for instance, Brazil and China and the World Bank just cut the Trans-Amazon Highway through the Amazon. Scar right across the Amazon rainforest, a road from Sao Paulo all the way out to Lima.
I'm gonna guess that was kind of run by China.
Yeah.
That one.
And that was, I believe the former head of the United Nations called it the single most detrimental human-caused project on the environment ever. The single most damaging project to the environment in human history was
funded by the CCP? You don't say.
And so now what we're seeing is all these offshoot roads. And so now for the first time, people can get into the rainforest. And oh, look, we got chainsaws now. So in history, you couldn't actually, I mean, if me or you was dropped in a rainforest right now, it's like, you can't cut down a tree that's 3 times as thick as this room with a machete.
No.
But when you got a 6-foot chainsaw, then you could do some damage. And so now they could take down these huge trees and get tens of thousands of dollars for an individual hardwood tree. You take down a Spanish cedar, you take down a mahogany. Those are big money.
And so why do they want to build that road? That's what I really want to know.
Well, if you build the road, you can extract all this resources. You can take out Brazil nuts. You can go. You can cut down the trees. You can get the timber. You can cut down the trees, take the timber, burn everything else, and then start a cattle farm. And then if that doesn't work, you can suck up the land in the Amazon and the West Amazon. The gold particles are in the sand. So in order to mine for gold, you have to cut the forest, burn the forest, and then suck up the earth with water and run it through a sluice and have mercury to bind the gold in like sediment. Shit. And then you have to burn off the mercury, releasing it into the atmosphere. And you get a very small quantity of poor quality gold. And so they are destroying.
That's way different than a lot of places.
It's obviously way different. You're not finding nuggets of gold. And so you can actually look at the Amazon from space and see these huge scars right in the West Amazon where gold miners are just destroying the forest. And it's not even like cutting down the forest and then leaving. They're cutting down the forest and then destroying the earth. And it's polluted with mercury. So now that mercury is entering
polluted with mercury.
With mercury, because they're using mercury to bind the gold out of the soil.
Oh, shit.
Yes. And so why do people have this access to mercury? We don't know. I mean, it's literally the photos of this. It's like an absolute war.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull one up while you're talking.
Yeah, type in like gold mining, Amazon rainforest. I mean, the Peruvian government went in and tried to get control, and basically the cops got turned around because it was a zone they couldn't enter.
When you say, okay, so you and I have talked, so I think I understand that, but even I might not. When you say it's a zone they couldn't enter, is that because it's an official indigenous territory and because the landscape doesn't allow for human beings to be able to navigate it?
No, it's a zone they couldn't enter because when you go into these gold mining zones, you're outside of sort of the jurisdiction of anywhere. I mean, like society breaks down. I mean, what are the rules of society? There's things we agree on and then we all abide by. When you're out in the middle of the rainforest, it's who's got bigger guns and how many of us are there.
Right.
And
Can't apply law.
Yeah, it's literally natural law. It's who's got more firepower. And so the police literally are scared to go into these regions because they're owned by mafias of gold miners. And we're talking about child trafficking for brothels in there. They steal children out of the indigenous communities and bring them to the mining areas. And then when the police go in,
the cops can't do anything about this?
The cops will get shot. The cops will go in there and get murdered. They find people. The lawyer I work with in the Amazon, his father stood up to the gold miners publicly and was murdered for it.
Fuck.
One of my close friends, who I used to go fishing with all the time, stood up to the loggers and was sort of vocal against gold miners. They shot him in the back of the head while he was like tying his shoes.
Who are these gold miners? Like, where are they from? What are they about?
They're local people who have no other resources. So that's where it gets interesting. It's like you come down. I came to the Amazon because I wanted to protect wildlife, and you end up having to deal with the social impacts because trees aren't going to cut themselves down. And you know, when Ryan was here, it's like they're trying to stop people from shooting elephants. It's like, well, elephants aren't going to go extinct. They were here a long time before we were, unless we murder them every day,
right?
In the hundreds of thousands. And it's like the whole thing with the environment is like people are like, we're losing species, we're losing our forests, we're losing our ocean. We're not losing anything.
We're doing it.
We're allowing other people to murder this shit. It's not, the earth isn't dying, it's being killed.
But I want to stay on this gold miners thing example for a second. And by the way, is that what you were looking for? That image behind you?
that stuff, but no, I'm going to send you pictures because they tried to go in there and there was like a police effort where they got the military and they went in with like military and you see these guys in like full SWAT gear.
Got it.
And
but what we're talking about though that's what it looks like though when they're done with the mercury and the gold. So
I was just there with ABC News last year.
I'll put that in the corner of the screen so people can see it. So what I'm seeing on that picture is that used to be a densely tree populated rainforest and now it's this.
That used to be the Amazon rainforest. Yeah. And now, when we were there was a sandstorm. Like, if that doesn't make you feel like you're in a fucking post-apocalyptic movie, we were in the Amazon rainforest with the news, and a sandstorm blows up, and there's tornadoes of dust in the most important part of the Amazon rainforest. Like, people don't realize how bad it is down there.
Wow.
And all of this is people that need better jobs. So I went down there with the ecotourism stuff, and I went with a guy from National Geographic. We were going up this river for anacondas, actually, and we were with this gold miner. This whole story just blows my mind. Everyone said we were going to get murdered because we were going upriver with gold miners, and so while we were up there, the Peruvian Navy actually came down in full fatigues, rifles. They blow up this guy's gold mining barge. I mean, the explosion was terrifying. There was chunks of metal everywhere, and I said to this guy, I was like, "What are you going to do now?" I was like, we're hanging out with the illegal gold miners. We're sitting there, and he's like wiping his forehead, and he was like, I guess I'm going to go get another motor. And I was like, what if you just did what we've been doing? I was like, why don't you we could bring people. You live in a beautiful patch of forest. I was like, we could show people this forest. You'd actually earn more money as a conservationist than you would as a gold miner. So he switched. He built a whole lodge with his own 2 hands. We started bringing him people from all over the world, and everything was going great until the gold miners showed up at 4 a.m., with their rifles, with masks over their faces. They dragged him out of bed. They put him on the floor. They beat the shit out of him. They took his kids out of the house. And they said, with a gun to his head, they said, say goodbye to your father. This is my friend. This is a guy I've worked with for years. And he stood up to the gold miners, and now he's got a gun against his head. And so he said, please don't shoot me in front of my kids. Please. So they stand him up, they tie his hands, and they bring him on the boat. And they start driving upriver. So his family, as far as they know, that's the last time they're going to see this guy. He's driving upriver with the gold miners. His hands are tied behind his back. And then they start hearing the sound of another motor. And so this guy's thinking, how do I get out of this situation? His name is Borean. He's going, I'm going to die today. How do I get out of this situation? And so as they're going upriver, they hear the sound of another thing. They have to start preparing things in the front of the boat to actually try and escape from the Peruvian armed forces that are coming downriver for the gold miners. He goes, just untie my hands. He goes, I'll drive the boat for you because we all have to get away. And so this kind of united them for a second. They at least they tied his hands in the front. So now he's driving the boat. He crashed the boat, jumped in the river, floated downriver, and then for 3 days survived in the forest with his hands tied. He was scratching them on vines. I get a phone call that this guy's missing, and we had to get support from the U.S. to send a rescue crew up there.
Fuck.
He made it out by the skin of his teeth. He had a rifle against his head. They were ready to kill him because he stood up to the gold miners.
But what's the craziest part about all this is before you even get into that story, you're talking about something we're going to talk more about, which is that there's a way in conservation, which isn't exactly, a Wall Street high-end executive job. There's a way to pay these people more than they're making in the gold mining because they're trying to subsist and survive and make money.
Yeah.
But those are the people who you're talking about who are doing the potentially killing here. So who's funding them?
In the case of the gold miners, nobody. In the case of the loggers, literally Chinese companies have come into the Amazon and they've given them the heavy machinery that they need to go in and build these roads, to bulldoze trees, and then to extract that timber and take it to Asian markets.
And they're cool with the loggers. Don't ask, don't tell if you're killing fucking people that are getting in their way.
They don't care
They don't care at all.
They don't care at all. They just say, go in there and do it. Now, here's the thing.
How are the gold miners not rich, though, if no one funds them?
Because they're the bottom level. They're pulling this out of the earth. They're working. And because it's distributed in the sand, the more you work, the more earth you suck up into that hose, the more you earn as a gold miner. And so it forces them to work endlessly, day and night. And then when they go to sell it, they get a small price for it. And then it's only when it hits the international market that it actually goes up in price. The guys on the ground are getting, it's like blood diamond.
Yeah.
The guys digging with the shovels in the pit, they're not making money. They're just doing it because their family's starving and they have no other option. And then when something threatens that, it's like, well, desperation breeds hostility, where they're going, this is my family. And so what this story taught me was, you know, by befriending one of these gold miners, by working with him, this guy was a great guy. He's so much fun. I mean, we bring tourists to see him. You know, he's involved in research now. He's actually an activist against the gold miners because he sees that his life is better now that he's not doing that anymore. And then the repercussions come. And in the Amazon, they are murdering activists. I mean, all over the world, environmental activists. If you stand up to the powers that are sucking these resources, you're standing up to major global forces.
And you can't, I mean, you talked about, like, for example, a Peruvian military team coming into into the forest to attack these guys or whatever. But the problem at the core of it is that so often this stuff is happening in places where they can't even get to because it's too dangerous. But the people that live there, like these gold miners, these aren't the indigenous people, no?
Most of the indigenous, so this is an interesting nuance.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, because we have a ranger team now, and people really focus on our indigenous rangers, but there's a lot of people in the region that are Peruvians. They just live in the region. They're not from an indigenous community, though. And so there's a difference there in terms of the people that are from a truly indigenous community or the people that are just part of the population of the country. And so that there's a little bit of a thing, you know, I'm an American, but I'm not a Native American. And so, like, for understanding that, most of the indigenous communities are much more conservation minded. I mean, indigenous communities are by far the best stewards of the rainforest because
they don't speak regular languages and stuff.
Some of them do. Some of them are very, I mean, I think it's the Kayapo. I mean, there's definitely some groups in other countries where they're running complex tourism things. They're doing huge efforts with conservation. These people know what they have and they want to protect their land and they live on it and they depend on it and they know that having fish in the river means that they'll always have food and that keeping the trees growing means that they'll always have fruit. And it's like they understand that simple thing that if you can breathe the air and drink the water, life is possible.
And they don't have, obviously, electricity. They don't have guns and stuff like that.
At this point, most of them do.
They do.
Most of them do,
But the one you were telling me about then, I guess, is an exception, where you were telling me another story about, like, being shot by a bow and arrow.
Yeah, that's different.
Okay, so there's some that are like that, though.
Oh, yeah, that's the uncontacted tribes.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to, like, split hairs, I mean, are they uncontacted tribes if they've raided other camps and, you know, stolen a machete or had some, you know, some sort of contact? No. But are there people that are completely isolated, living out in the Amazon rainforest, naked in the jungle, who still live with bows and arrows, barefoot? Yes. They've been out there for at least over 100 years in that state, because when the rubber boom hit, another extractive period at the turn of the century.
The rubber boom?
The rubber boom. When the Industrial Revolution hit and we needed hoses, gaskets, bike tires, all of a sudden rubber became this huge thing. Now, where did rubber come from? The Amazon rainforest. It's another thing that we got from the Amazon before it was stolen and brought to Asia. But Henry Ford actually went to the Amazon and created Fordlandia. He tried to actually make this giant rubber plantation that failed because you can't make a plantation out of rubber. So what happened was, again, there was this huge demand for rubber. It sent all these people from the north down into the Amazon. And what they did was the only way to get to all these trees was to get the local people to make them to do it. So what you got was basically a Holocaust where they went down there and they beat the local people into submission. The missionaries were begging people. They were like, this is just ungodly amounts of suffering. They were lighting people, just shock and awe, just lighting people on fire, being like, you do exactly as we say. And so you had these rubber barons collecting rubber, and they would go to the communities, make slaves out of the people, and then send them out into the jungle, and of course, keep their children as ransom. I mean, the worst shit you can imagine. And so these tribes are a result of that. These are the tribes that, there's a book called The Unconquered, because these are literally the tribes that said no. They said, they pointed their arrows at the threat and said, we're going to keep backing up into the forest. And so they've been out there isolated. They may have once had more contact with some of the other communities, but they've been isolated. And once you isolate a population, their mythology, their generational knowledge comes down to that the outside world is dangerous. The outside world is trying to kill us. Right. And so these are still extremely hostile tribes. Numerous people in our region have been shot by arrows. 3 loggers, just last month, 3 loggers were shot, and the police actually finally came out to review the bodies, and like sort of on the WhatsApp, interweb, we got photos of it. It was just these puffed up bodies with arrows in them on the beaches, and it was just loggers who came around to Bend and they shot at the tribes, and the tribes shot 6-foot arrows at them.
What are the arrows made out of?
Bamboo tipped. You take bamboo and split it, and it actually splits with a razor edge. And so they know how to do that and then cure it over the fire, and then they attach that to these pieces of giant river cane. It's just like a fat grass. It weighs nothing.
How long is it?
About 6 or 7 feet. And so they're launching spears that they can shoot a spider monkey at like 100 meters. And so when loggers come around and they're shooting a shotgun's range is what? They're at 60 feet accurately. That's going to do any damage. And you have these guys that can launch these arrows huge distances. And these are like steak knives. And so you have, right now in the Amazon, there's a slow war playing out between the extractors, between loggers, gold miners, and the last truly free people on Earth.
That is, it's like, you know what?
It doesn't sound real.
You're exploding my head today because I have so many questions and you are throwing out so much information. I'm sure people at home are like, oh my God, because you've been down there for 17 fucking years for the most part, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, the idea that even just that right there, where you have gold miners and loggers who are at least people of society, but they happen to live in the rainforest.
They have cell phones,
right? So
chainsaws.
I don't want to use this word, but just for the sake of argument, we're going to say more normal, like modern day humans,
more relatable, yeah.
And then you have all these indigenous tribes in there, and they're all fighting their own little war, right? That's on one hand. Then on the other hand, you have outsiders like you coming in trying to save stuff who are fighting a war with the loggers and the gold miners, sometimes where you're just trying to convince them, other times where they're literally shooting at you and killing you. Yep. And then in the meantime, you have the indigenous tribes, some of them that are like, oh, you're an enemy too. It's like this, you can't win.
No, I think it was, I can't remember who said it. Some author called the Amazon the greatest natural battlefield on Earth because
it's perfect.
Per acre, just from the spider level, you have spiders eating frogs and praying mantises eating, butterflies, and it's just everything in that ecosystem is in constant competition and has been evolving for millions of years to be predator and prey. And because of the denseness of the biodiversity, there's just everything is eating each other all the time. Life is actually this moment of stasis that's the antithesis to the constant churning death of the Amazon. I mean, it's just a meat grinder. Things are alive for a moment and then they die. Every single thing in that forest is going to be eaten, from the biggest tree to the jaguar to you. I mean, and that's why you walk through the jungle and there's botflies inserting their larvae into your skin. A dead body decomposes in like 2 days. The termites, ants, maggots, dung beetles, everything will come in and just rip apart that body. When an animal dies in the forest and we watch it, it literally like puffs up and then goes down in a day. It just sucks life. And just fungal mycelium is running through everything, breaking down. As soon as those trees fall, think about it. If the Amazon rainforest didn't have fungus to break down the leaves, it would bury itself. All those falling leaves constantly, it would just end up becoming this thing. It's constantly churning through life. The rivers are sucking all that out. And it's actually at such a quick rate that you can't leave, there's no way to store food in the Amazon, which is a lot of the reason that a lot of these cultures rely on like daily hunting, daily fishing. Where are you going to put it? You catch a fish, you got to eat that fish because by tomorrow it's bad. There's other things living in it. Or at night something came and stole it. It's like it's a fast-paced survival right there.
I'm trying to think like off the top of my head, other places around the world that are relatable to this, and other than what you said about like certain parts of Congo where there actually are a couple rainforests, is there anything?
There is. I mean, like Indonesia, another place that's getting ripped apart by palm oil. The Indonesian rainforests next to Brazil and the Amazon and the Congo, Indonesia has some of the most beautiful rainforests on Earth and some of the most ecologically significant rainforests on Earth. There's this thing called the Lesur ecosystem. It's the last place on Earth where there's tigers, rhinos, elephants, orangutans, all living in the same jungle. It's like a wonderland. Incredible forest, huge carbon sink, stores tons of forest.
How big are we talking?
It's not tremendous, this one area, but they're just every year they're cutting it. And I'm talking about clear cutting it and putting up palm oil plantations because we want palm oil. It's literally the kryptonite of the rainforest. It's in so many products. It's in chips, it's in shampoos, it's in skincare products, and they're leveling the rainforest for it. And so here's the thing. At the end of the day, people get you're talking to the biggest environmentalist on earth. I've devoted my life to this, but people spend so much time crying about it when there's truly practical solutions. If you could knock out the timber industry, who's buying those old wood trees, they'd find something else to do.
So
same with palm oil.
Before we go all the way down this, I think a really effective thing that you explained to me that we hinted at earlier, I don't know if we got all the way into it, was what, like, for people at home just thinking to themselves, well, why not just plant new trees or some shit like that? You're talking about, like, we use wood for all kinds of shit, but probably the number one thing is forms of architecture and perhaps even paper, right? And so let's start with paper. If I take out an 8x11 page that I'm going to put in a printer, this thing needs to be sturdy, right? It can't, like, rip apart softly and shit like that. I mean, of course, you can tear paper easily, but it needs to be, like, it can be sturdy. And then if you look at a house and you're building the foundation of a house, well, some houses you're planning on, let's let that shit be there for 300 years. You need to make sure that it also is sturdy, such that it doesn't fall in on itself. So as you explained to me, when they're cutting down these trees in the rainforest, for example, they're cutting down trees that are at least several hundred years old, usually thousands of years old. And you can't use replanted trees after 10 or 20 years because apparently the wood does not have that foundation such that, you know, paper will tear apart and houses will have to be rebuilt in 5 to 10 years.
There's so much stuff that old growth forests offer. So yes, like now they're going in the U.S. They're going and repurposing the big old beams out of barns because we don't have trees that big and that strong anymore. They don't exist. We cut them already, and so our old growth forests are already in our architecture. They're gone. And so in the rainforest, it's not only that. That's the smallest aspect of it, is that when you have this giant tree that's the size of a living room, and again, think the home tree in Avatar, just giant buttress roots, branches that spread out. This is like 150, 160-foot tree in the Amazon rainforest. It's covered with thousands of other species.
Right.
It's a skyscraper of life. And so when you have, you know, a 10-year-old little sapling in the tree, it hasn't developed those complex communities yet. It doesn't have the mosses and lichens and mycelium. It doesn't have birds and mammals and monkeys living in it. It hasn't lost branches that make holes in the tree that create habitat for other species or have strangler figs growing on it. These trees become these incredibly complex worlds of life. And so when you're cutting a 600-year-old tree or a 1,000-year-old tree, we will never get that back in our lifetime. Even if we plant a tree right now, what my great-great-great-grandkids might see it, like, it's not, these forests have been growing for so long and are so complex. That's actually one of the biggest things that pisses me off, because there's all these organizations out there right now that are like, and again, different places, different strategies. You know what I mean? Like California, there are wildfires. The Amazon does not burn. People can't seem to separate those two things. And, you know, with the old growth thing, it's like, no, it's not about planting more trees. Recently, a guy did a stunt where he jumped out of a plane with a bunch of seeds and he like skydived with like seeds all around him. And it was like, great. Once again, you're doing nothing. You're just a dipshit getting eaten by an anaconda for no reason. What we have to do is protect the old growth trees, the thing that we can't get back. That's my mission. That's what I've been working. And when I say my mission, I have to like say this out loud, is that everything I've done in the Amazon rainforest has been through the lens of that. I met the local people and they said, please help us protect this river. Anything that I've done, there's recently, like, you know, every now and then I do these interviews and you get like a title on an interview and I'll say like, meet the man trying to save the Amazon rainforest. And it's like, sure. Here's an analogy to that puts it into perspective. Imagine you're a parent and you take your kid fishing. You get in your car, you bought a fishing rod with the money you earned. You get a hook, you get a worm, you put the worm on the hook, you drive them to a stream, you put it in their hands, and then they go, I caught a fish. And it's like, yeah, you did, but with a lot of help. And so like anything that if anything that I do in the Amazon is because I have the teachings of the local people, because we've lived as family for 17 years. And it's like, as a team, this is what we're doing. I happen to be up in North America and I can go to New York and LA and I can speak fluent English, so I can do this stuff. They're the brains behind the operation. I mean, everything I'm doing is just these are people trying to save their environment.
Well, how soon did that come together? Like, you went down there when you were 18, so it's been 17 years. But like, when you first go down, it sounds like you're more or less like, getting your bearings, exploring, like trying to understand what shit is. At what point did it turn to like, okay, now we're going to create a clear objective. Here's how we can start trying to accomplish this objective, and here's where we want to be in 25 years or something.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I first got down there, it was really just like, this is incredible. It was like the first time I saw leafcutter ants, I was like, these are real.
Yeah.
You know,
A leafcutter ant?
a leafcutter ant. I mean, you grow up, you see this stuff on, you know, Planet Earth documentaries. You see leafcutter ants, and it was the first thing I saw was a giant anteater, and I saw leafcutter ants, and there was macaws in the sky. And leafcutter ants are, again, what part of the regeneration of the forest. They recycle, I think, up to 17% of the biomass of the forest. Like, of all the trees, animals, everything in the Amazon, if you took all the living biological matter and dried it out of the biomass, they recycle 17%.
Wow.
I'll put a
picture in the
force,
corner of the screen for people.
They have cities underground with complex air intake and ventilation systems. And so anyway, I went to the jungle, made friends with these guys, and we started going on these crazy adventures. They invited me on indigenous hunting expeditions. So we'd be out in the jungle for 3 weeks at a time in the most remote, like unnamed parts of the Amazon rainforest. And that was all well and good, and I started bringing people. So I had a reason I was coming, and I felt like I was contributing to their livelihoods and helping them to protect a little bit of forest. But it was when the Trans-Amazon Highway came through. The last link of the Trans-Amazon Highway was crossing the Madre de Dios Bridge, the Mother of God River in Peru.
I'll put that in the corner. I'm going to pull that up for you.
And so we saw this bridge as it was being constructed, and at that time, the road was just this little dirt track, but they finished paving it while I was there. And we started to see all these offshoot roads coming off the Trans-Amazon Highway. And all of a sudden, our river, where places it had once taken us 2 days to get to by boat, they would cut a road, and then you can get there in a few hours. And then the chainsaws start coming in, and then the gold miners and the loggers. And then my friend got assassinated. And then it's like...
Your friend got assassinated?
Yeah, it's the guy that said they shot in the back of the head. The miners. I mean, he was, I mean, these are people that wanted to live out there because they loved the forest, because they lived in symbiosis with the forest. And then all of a sudden you get these outsiders, these extractors coming in. They don't want to hear anything about that. They don't want to hear resistance to their trajectory. And so we started saying, okay, this is getting serious. We're seeing forests go down. We're watching forests burn. What are we going to do? And that's when we said, okay, look, we need to create something bigger. And so we had this meeting, and it was like all the local guys, and they were like, this is not enough. We need to do more and faster. And so at that time, I was actually in college in New Jersey, and there's something in the Hudson Valley called the Hudson River Keeper. And they protect the Hudson Valley and the endangered sturgeon that are there, the fish populations. And I was like, what if we were the jungle keepers? What if we were the jungle
Such
keepers?
A sick name.
Yeah, like, I mean, you could literally have like a superhero group, the jungle keepers. But they were like, look, whatever you can do, whatever you have to do. They were like, we want to protect our home. We want to protect this incredible river. And our river sits between some major, like there's like 4 or 5 national parks and protected areas and indigenous zones. And this river cuts it's right through the center.
So the national parks and protected areas are...
It's a patchwork.
What do you mean patchwork?
It's a patchwork. You take this table, you throw a national park over there. Great. What about the rest of the table?
Right.
So the Amazon,
because that was my question. Like, how much of it does it really cover, percentage-wise?
I think almost 50% of the Amazon is contained in either indigenous reserves or national parks. It's a significant amount. A lot of conservation work has been done by governments, by scientists, by indigenous activists. I mean, there is a huge global concentrated effort to protect the Amazon. It's just that the forces against it are so pervasive, so legion.
That was my question. Do they break the rules all the time?
Of course.
They go in there?
Of course.
Like
okay,
in
so
the
let's
actual
say
national park
let's
area?
let's say we slap a 40,000 acre national park right there. It's like, okay, cool, but who's going to stop you from going in there?
Right,
Unless you have guys on the ground with monitoring equipment and guns and resources like gasoline to take their boats up and motors. And I mean, my rangers right now, our rangers are surviving in the jungle right now as we speak. They're living out there every single day through the rainy season, the river going up 15 feet. The river dropping.
And they just patrol all day?
They patrol all day, and their job is to listen for chainsaws. Their job is to see if there's areas that are being deforested and report back.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.